So we are on day 4, I believe. Bear with me while I get my mic. We're on day 4 of our Christmas stretches series. And what I wanted to talk to you about today was glutes. We definitely have a lot of our clients who struggle with being able to release their glutes or stretch their glutes or work out where everything is in space with their glutes. So I figured that it might be worthwhile just running through how to get glutes working. So our main aim today is where are the glutes and what do they do? Obviously most of us know glutes are the big muscle at the back of our butt cheek, and there is 2, 3, 4, basically 3 main glute muscles that we talk about when us as physios talk about glutes. And we're talking about our glute minimus and our glute medius, and then our glute max. So the glute min and med, if you think of those, they're a little bit higher up on the, you put your hands on your hips, they're sort of on that outer edge of those, that hip bone. And what those 2 muscles do is they stabilize the hip. So what they're doing is when we're standing, they stop the hip from falling. Whereas your glute max is your power muscle that actually lifts the leg up. So if I am standing, hopefully you might still see a bit of my head if I move backwards. So if I'm standing here and I lift my leg up and my glute here is working, I stay nice and stable. Now if I stand up and my glute med min isn't working to stabilize me, I'll collapse. Okay? So when we're seeing people walk, if they're walking and their glutes stabilizing them, everything stays nice and stable. If we're walking and we collapse and we wiggle side to side, it just means that our hip joints here are not being stabilized. So the pelvis, the muscle at the side of the pelvis here, isn't strong enough to hold me, so I drop. Whereas if the muscle was working well and it held me, it would hold me up. Same thing happens when I then try and do something like a lunge. If I'm lunging well and that muscle's working, I stay nice and square. If that glute med min isn't working to stabilize me, I collapse. That's when we start getting lots of knee pain, or we start seeing people with knees that come in like this, and it's because that muscle isn't working. So think of the smaller ones, glute med min. They hold us and they stabilize us. Our big glute muscle at the back is our glute max, and that's our power muscle that holds us into or pushes us and works us into extension, where, like I said, the glute med min holds the pelvis up on the relative to the hip, and also can do certain amounts of rotation around the hip as well. Glute max, extension. Okay, we obviously have a few deeper hip muscles underneath all that as well. So you'll have a few deeper hip muscles like your piriformis muscle, which most of us have heard about. And typically what we might see in our clinic is if your glutes are dysfunctional, and dysfunctional means that they're not working well. So dysfunctional doesn't mean there's a massive problem. It just means they're not working the way they should do optimally. So we're not using our stabilizers well, which means that we can't use our glute max well, which then means that we fall in and we all end up with weaker cores, using different muscles like our lower back and our inner thighs and our hip flexors to try and compensate for the lack of strength and stability and power that we'd expect in our glutes. Okay, so we're going to work out how to stretch them today. So I've got a couple of things just to show you maybe to start with, and some of those is a little bit of release work. Okay, So if you're finding that your glutes are actually tight and you try and move things and they don't feel that great, you can always sit on a ball and use the ball. Now, we do tend to find that people just roll around on the ball. What I would suggest is that if you are doing trigger point release, that you hold a spot and hold it there, move to the next spot and hold it there, rather than rolling it around. Okay, what tends to happen, and it's generally because I've seen a couple of people in this morning, hence why I'm later than planned on our presentation today, but people seem to think if you rub it quicker, then you move it quicker, then you move it around quicker, it kind of works. And what will happen is if somebody comes and they're rubbing you and they're agitating you and they're shaking you, you tend to get tenser. Whereas if somebody comes and they're like nice and slow, then the body goes and it relaxes a little bit. So think of the same principle if you're doing releases with the ball or the roller or whatever it is that you would use. You want it to be, I'm just going to pop onto this, so imagine I'm sitting on this ball. You just want it to be where I sit. Should be about maybe 4, 5, 6 out of 10 discomfort. So it's sore enough that I go, yeah, I know I'm on something, I know I'm on a ball, I know it's a little bit uncomfortable, but I can hold, rather than, oh my God, I'm trying to take pressure off, because then that's too sore. Now, if that's the case, you need a softer ball, or you need a bigger ball, because the input of that is fairly decent as opposed to there. So if I'm on a slightly bigger ball, these balls, by the way, were fabulous. We call them our Darth Vader Star. And it's basically just, or a Death Star, rather. And they're red and black. They were about $8 in Kmart, and they were the best thing ever. If anyone finds them, again, Kmart has stopped selling them, but they were the best thing ever. So if you can grab one of these, grab one of these. But then again, you can just sit on the ball and release it. And you're just doing anywhere in that back pocket section of your jeans, and we're working on release. The other way that we use things to release is with the roller. So similar thing, you're sitting on top of the roller. So I'm sitting with my sit bones on the roller, I'm leaning to the right, and I'm bringing my right leg up and over, and I'm rolling along that right glute. So by doing it this way, I'm getting some stress and trigger point through the section on the roller, and I'm holding. Find where it's sore, I just breathe and release into it, and I go to the next section. Okay. So if you are interested, if you go to our YouTube channel, we have a whole heap of different ways to release your glutes on there, or to release different muscles on there. And now we're just going to go back to how to stretch those glutes. So the easiest way to do it is if you're lying on your back. Okay. Now remember, I generally would prefer you to have something just underneath your thigh or underneath your neck just to support you. So for your glute, you want to turn the leg out. So we start with 2 feet square. I'm going to cross one ankle over the other into the top of the thigh. So my right leg is turned out towards you. I'm going to come up on my toes so I can reach through, and then I'm going to stretch the leg. Okay, so now I'm going to feel a stretch on the outer side of the glute that's towards me, and maybe into the bottom side, depending on where I'm tight. I would stay relaxed here, because in that relaxed posture, your tailbone is nice and heavy. If we start curling up here, we end up curling the whole section here, and then we lose the stretch. Whereas if we're flattened down the tail and the pelvis stays more in neutral. Okay? And we're going to take it across. I'm going to cross the other side. So I'm going to ease that towards my chest. If I want a bigger stretch, I can always press away. Now, if you remember back to day one, or the little stretch series we did the other day, day 3 now, we did knee to chest with the leg out, and then we did knee to opposite shoulder. So it might be worthwhile starting with these if you are tight. Knee to chest and relax, knee to opposite shoulder and relax, and then into your glute stretch. Okay, same on the other side, knee to chest. So remember, we can have weight down if you want to stay stable. Knee to opposite shoulder. Just breathe into that stretch, and then knee into chest across there. I can push out, and I can lift that leg towards me if I choose. So they're the 2 or 3 easy basic stretches we can do on our back. Some of the stretches that some of our clients like is basically doing both legs together. Okay, so on this one, we take the leg up to center and we cross the other leg over it. So I'm crossed at the knees. So if it's easier on the floor, you just cross your legs over so your inner thighs are touching, and then come up on your toe, and we're reaching down to grab low in the shins, and we're pulling in this direction. Okay, so if I just turn slightly off center so you can see, I cross my leg over, I'm aiming to separate the legs and pull in. Again, I want my head nice on my back so my bum is there. And then I swap my legs over, so my top leg now, I pull in this way as well. And then I'm getting the glute stretch through here. Okay, so those ones are nice ones to work on that you can do lying down. Okay, we're going to do stretches for your glutes that are in quadruped now. So with your quadruped, we're just going to come up into that seated or that quadruped position, so hands on knees, the hands and knees rather. You're going to take your leg, cross it behind the other leg, and then we ease back. So those of you familiar with yoga, it's like pigeon stretch. If I just turn quickly backwards my leg crosses and I slide it down and I'm on a slight diagonal. So I'm taking my breath, I cross the leg outside my mat, and then I come down onto my elbows as much as I feel I can. Okay, and I can rock side to side on this, and I should feel the stretch in this hip. Okay, now if I tuck under, so my tail is underneath, it's going to be a little different than if I'm sticking my bottom out. So if you tuck under or you stick out, you're going to get a slightly different stretch. If I come front onto you, if I'm in that position here, I may also want to change the angle of this leg, so I might want to take it across a little bit more. I might want to lean this way a little bit more. So it's up to you where you feel you're mobile. If you are mobile enough that when you're in that front section, you can get that leg a little bit more like a traditional pigeon stretch for yoga, then great. The main thing that you need to be aware of is that the stretches are effective for you. And some of us just aren't. Some of us just aren't stretchy, and we can't stretch it, it's very hard. And some of us are very mobile and very floppy. So you want to make sure when you're stretching that it's comfortable, but you also want to make sure when you're stretching that you protect your joints. Okay, so we've got glutes lying, we've got glutes in quadruped. We've also got glutes that you can do standing up and sitting down. So I'm just going to take you to the bar behind me and show you how to do some glutes stretches that way. I'll grab the mic. I might lose you a little bit with the mic, but I'll grab it with me and hopefully you can still see. I'll just place my mic on the floor here. So if I'm standing, one of the easiest ways to do it is to hold on to something, cross my leg over, and you'll see people doing that sort of mini squat sit, okay, that way. If I'm at the bar or if I'm at a playground or a chair, I might choose to get my leg up on the bar and try and get the stretch through there that way on. Same on the other side. The stretch is here, so I feel it in my glutes. If you haven't got that mobility, that might be the easiest way for you to do it. Obviously, you see people doing their normal stretches for glutes this way. I'm just going to grab a chair and show you how to do it sitting. So with our seated version, it'll be very similar to where you were with our lying versions or our standing versions. So our seated versions, if you translate what we did with the lying, so if you happen to be at your desk and you're working or you're just sat watching the telly, you can do knee to chest. So I'm doing knee to shoulder, same side. I can do knee to shoulder, opposite side. And then I can do leg, knee to chest, knee to opposite shoulder. Okay? I wriggle slightly forward in my chair. I can also do my figure 4 stretching. So the one we've just done standing, the one we did lying on our backs, and now figure 4 stretch, just in a chair. If I swap legs, crossing my leg over, I can use my elbow to push down, and I'm basically just leaning forward from the waist. And again, I should feel that in my glute here. Okay? So when we're thinking about our glute stretches, the biggest probably resistance or setbacks that people get when they say that stretching is difficult, stretching is hard, stretching is, it's just too much time out of their day. These are basics that you can do wherever you are. You can do the glutes lying in bed before you get up. You could do them when you lie down before you go to sleep. You could do these ones if you're sat on the phone or you happen to be looking through Facebook or whatever else it is that we do. We're on the phone or we're watching the telly. I generally say to my clients, if you don't have a lot of time, whenever you change computer programs or you're fiddling or you change screens or something happens, could you do a stretch and hold it for 30 seconds? That way you haven't got to go walk down the hall, grab a mat, get on the floor, do 10 minutes of stretching. You've done stretches every half hour throughout the day. Something's been going on. Okay? If you happen to be out and about, and you are, there's a chair around, you could always just sit and lean on the chair and use that as a stretch for your glute. Cross your leg and use that as a stretch for your glute. It's sticking your bottom out. One of the basic ones that is easy is leaning on the cabinet, bending a knee and just stretching into a hip. Same on the other side, stretching into a hip. If I just turn backwards for you here, I'm pushing that hip out, so I stretch it. And then I'm pushing that hip out, so I stretch it. So it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to take up 20 minutes of your time. It can just be small, progressive, incidental stretches that happen during the day naturally will work. We very commonly will come in, not so much maybe on the big bar, but if we're working on the beds, obviously do this on a stable surface, but we might ease into a stretch just because we're getting tired or to take some pressure off. And it means that throughout the day, we're stretching many, many more times than if we sit down on the floor and do 10 minutes at the end of the day. So I hope that's giving you some ideas for glutes. I hope that if you start trying to integrate them into your day, they become less intrusive. Our easy ones like this, you can do wherever you are. Sit down, get out the car before you stand up, do some stretches, stretch each leg, and then get yourself up. If you're watching the news or you're watching a program on the telly, you can do literally 2 or 3 stretches between commercial breaks. Same thing if you're waiting for the kettle to boil, sit down on a chair, do the stretches, drinking coffee. Doesn't have to take a lot of time. So if you can, let me know how that's gone for you. Is it that hard? Is it really, really hard to remember? If so, set a timer on the phone. And there you go, it's 2 o'clock, I've got to do stretches at 2. Or at 6 o'clock, I'm going to do some stretches at 6. But yeah, glutes for today, lying, sitting, standing, quadruped, heaps for you to get going with. Let me know how you go, and thank you for joining me. We'll be back. Tomorrow is Tuesday, so we will go on to hip flexors, maybe hip flexors and quads tomorrow. So we've done the glutes, we'll go to hip flexors and quads, and then Wednesday we'll cover hamstrings, and then we'll go further from there. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you